Welcome to High Growth Matters, a podcast that explores topics on the minds of forward-thinking HR leaders and people managers, from leadership and strategy to emerging technologies. High Growth Matters is sponsored by OpenComp, makers of the world's first compensation software that gives you clarity every time you make a decision about pay. And it's hosted by me, Caitlin Allen, a startup executive with 3 exits under my belt, along with my co-host, Nancy Connery. Nancy was founding VP of HR and employee number 5 at Salesforce, and she now leads one of the most reputable HR advisory firms in Silicon Valley. She's also co-founder of OpenComp. Don't forget to give the show a 5-star rating as we dive in. It's a common question to ask how high performers continually reinvent themselves in an environment where a lot in the business is changing rapidly, and what innovative ways recruiting and people teams can partner to deliver on fueling that kind of reinvention, especially as it relates to values and DEI initiatives. So today we're going to speak with Jamie Salas, who has been promoted 4 times since joining Clickup, one of today's fastest growing companies of all time. And she's currently the director of recruiting. Jamie, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Really excited to have you. So let's start off with something that's a little bit more personal. We ask every guest this question. What is something that your coworkers don't normally know about you?
Yeah, I think I am really big into the ocean and scuba diving. So I think outside of work, that's something that I really enjoy doing. I think it's like a whole other frontier to explore. So I think that's my fun fact that most of them don't know. Outside of that, they know all my secrets.
Well, that's pretty good then. That's interesting. When did you start scuba diving?
Yeah, I started last summer, so I'm only about a year in, but I think there's just so many cool spots I want to go to.
Oh, totally. I grew up snorkeling because my mom was raised in the Bahamas, and it's like another world down there.
Yeah, there's some cool ones. We're going to do, I think, the Hammerhead dive in Hawaii eventually, which will be super neat.
Amazing. Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that. On a more work-oriented subject, so you joined Clickup in 2021, I believe, as the first go-to-market recruiter, and that was shortly after your Series B unicorn valuation, and the company had about 200 employees at that point. And then since, Clickup has become one of the fastest-growing companies ever. So I'd love to hear a little bit about that journey.
Yeah. Wow. What a journey it's been. I think when I joined ClickUp, I was looking at it really simplistically. And I think I wanted to be somewhere where I could really invest in the leadership and the culture and just like the genuine good that I thought that ClickUp could do kind of for the world, as cheesy as that sounds. And I think what really drew me in was the opportunity to build. And I've really gotten the chance to do that. I've seen kind of the employee size 10x in my time here, which has been really, really awesome. And I think, with that, I was also new to the SaaS space entirely. So I had to learn to really hit the ground running at a very fast pace and how to just really be a sponge and mirror the pace of those around me and kind of learn how to do things as I went, which definitely meant jumping out of my comfort zone. And I think over the last couple of years, I've gotten to do some really cool things when it comes to recruiting and hiring. My first year, we spent a lot of energy just kind of building out very foundational teams since there was only about 200 people when I started. And then through that next stage of growth, we got to launch globally. And this year, it's really all about up-leveling and taking it to be more scalable as larger teams. So I think kind of throughout that, those 3 things with the leadership and the people have definitely stayed the same, and it's been the best journey ever.
That's so cool. And I actually should have asked this question at the beginning, so forgive me for not doing it. But for the 2 listeners who don't know what ClickUp is, what does ClickUp do?
I think ClickUp is a really cool all-in-one productivity platform that really helps you bundle your work in one place. I think, when you look at when I first joined ClickUp, we all used it internally. Within recruiting, we used it as our applicant tracking system and completely built it out that way. Our marketing teams used it to track campaigns, engineering for their sprints. And what was really cool is we all had the ability to really customize our own workflows the way that we needed to, but we had the ability to kind of contribute and talk to each other on the work that we were doing in one spot, which is just huge in the remote working world that we're in today.
Well said. It says so much to when a company actually drinks its own champagne or uses its own product. So it's definitely a good proof point that so many teams can use the platform.
Yeah, it's really fun. Saves you a day per week for sure.
Well, in that case, I love it. You had so 10x employee growth, 200 to about 2000. Let's go back to kind of 2021 when you started your initial role at Clickup. What was that initial charter? And then as you've gone, through the last couple of years and been promoted into senior recruiter and manager and now director of global recruiting, how is your charter enlarged, and how is it related to kind of what Clickup's here to do in the world?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I first joined ClickUp, it was just all hands on deck to hire, the foundational teams as fast as we could. I think a huge focus for me at the time was go to market. I think we had to expand our team by at least 75 hires by the end of that year. And then in addition to that, I had to work alongside the other kind of early recruiters that were there with me to really build out a scalable recruitment engine for the wider ClickUp team as we were hiring quite a few people. And I think like those first 6 to 9 months were just crazy. I think I hired over 130 people, which was wild, and was able to kind of really build out the recruiting team around me, which was something that I was really fortunate to be able to do as a senior recruiter. And then from there, I think I've always just been like very passionate about ClickUp and like what it can do. And so I've always been the first to raise my hand to try something new and like dive in and figure it out. And so that kind of progressed into a management role. It was definitely an adjustment, just kind of shifting from that peer relationship to a more leadership focused role within the team. But I think with like how fast that ClickUp was growing, both in our team size as well as a business, there was definitely a lot of pivots we needed to make to keep with that velocity. And so I think, I was fortunate to have a very strong team of recruiters around me that are very ambitious, very tenacious. And so this allowed me to lean in a lot more into talent operations and really focusing on if we were doing things productive as we've scaled, like, is things the same? Are things the same across departments? And driving best practices to really make sure that we're being productive in how we're hiring. I think that in that role, I did a lot around like headcount and building out that process, kind of looking at scaling our systems and reporting. I also did a lot around just like team enablement and collaboration. I think that kind of goes in line with our core values. And I think that some of the best ideas and how we've scaled have come directly for the team. So that was my time in the management role. And then shortly after stepping into that role, there was kind of a team-wide change and a kind of a shift within our talent acquisition team. And so I stepped up and actually was able to oversee the entire team, both tech and non-tech, which at the time was super scary because I had no technical recruiting experience. But I think like the team was really behind me, and I think that they really trusted me to lean in there. And I think that even though that part was only temporary, it was really cool to see the impact that I could have in that leadership role as a director to enable and empower others, and really just kind of lean into more of the strategy of like how we get talent, where we're going after things, what the market looks like. And I've really enjoyed leaning in there and back on the non-technical side, which is really fun.
That's amazing. I think I'm curious to understand kind of how you've reinvented yourself so many times, and just proactively listening some of the things I heard you say there, which were really, poignant about raising your hand, being surrounded by good people, and also a fair degree of working through fear around like new experiences. What, we've got our listeners are they're HR folks, HR executives, and people managers and people leaders who are keen to understand how they can support similar growth in their teams in ways that foster high performance, like you just basically talked about with your career trajectory. What would you say is kind of behind your ability to raise your hand and work through fear and reinvent yourself? And what would you advise them as they think about wanting to do that for their teams?
Totally. I think what has been the most impactful for me is the culture around ownership and embodying a growth mindset here at Clickup. I think, even prior to Clickup, that's just how I naturally approached work and how I like to work. But I think like the way that the leadership team has really leaned in there and created that sense of trust that there is the space to do that has really changed my career trajectory tremendously. I think, the leaders that I've gotten to work with, I mean, we've hired a just world-class leadership team. And I think that, they take a strong degree of ownership and growth mindset in their own work as well, and have been really open and vulnerable with me and just kind of sharing the learnings that they've made in their own career paths, kind of what they would have done differently, what they feel like is going really well. And that's allowed me to really kind of take those different pieces that I absolutely love about how they lead their teams and bring that along with me. Additionally, I think that there's just a really strong feedback culture here at Clickup. And I think that the way that it's always been positioned to me by those same leaders is one of a positive message. Like feedback truly is a gift. And we believe in radical candor, which is awesome. And I think that that's something that I regularly sought out and like tried to incorporate and run with as fast as I could. And I think like the biggest learning I took away is just how genuine and human all those interactions were, and like how it was coming from a place of like genuinely wanting to not only help me, but better themselves and like really just take Clickup to the next level without any ego involved at all.
I love that. And what the things that really, I imagine with the ownership piece on the culture side, imagine it's lived out by those at the top, it sounds like. What are the other kind of cultural aspects that set the organization up to be owners?
Yeah, I think that there's definitely a strong culture of if you see something that can be improved and you have an idea to fix it, there is that freedom to like really dive in and try things out. It's definitely like calculated risk and like really thinking through it and all the options. But I think that has really helped to drive ownership, because I think that if you see or feel a pain point, you have the ability to be able to directly change that for you or your team, which is huge.
Love that. Maybe we can take a step back even wider. Clickup is fairly unique from a values and culture perspective. What are some of the values, or all of them, that you all hold dear?
Yeah, well, they're all near and dear. I think that as we've grown as fast as we've had, being one of the fastest growing companies ever, we've really stood firm in our cultures and values and made sure that not only that scaled alongside us with our team that we had existing, but how we hired as well. And I think that, that first core value of providing, the best customer experience, period, and being passionate about saving the world more time really pushes the team to like think differently about how we go about things in our day to day. I think when you think about it more from that point of view, versus, numbers and metrics, which are definitely important, it definitely kind of drives a different thought process. And then I think within that, it drives growing 1% and like pushing yourself to kind of grow as a person and professional, which leans into a kind of our core value of normal sucks. Like, I think that's essentially kind of challenging the status quo and being willing to do something a little outside the box that isn't how every other recruitment team does it, or, whatever department that might be. And I think that's really created a culture of like a very collaborative, high achieving, innovative team. And so I think like when you look around and you're surrounded by, 900 plus people that think that way and act that way, it's very inspiring, and it really kind of sparks passion within yourself to be like, I want to do this in my role, and I want to see how my team can do something like this. Because you see other people doing these incredible things with their career, and it feels so possible and tangible for you to do too. And I think there's also just like a very good sense of togetherness and a willingness to have fun, which I think is so, so important. Like, people here want to celebrate each other's wings or eat hot wings in the kitchen together, like, all the things. And I think that kind of ties our culture all together.
That's great. And it's almost like the right kind of herd mentality. And I think one of the things that's interesting to me about your role, so recruiting in many ways is kind of the tip of the spear of the people organization, at least from the perspective of everyone that your team brings in the door, right, they're either going to add or subtract from the culture, add or subtract from that sense of ownership. And so the relationship between the chief people officer and the head of recruiting is quite critical. So I would love to understand, whether it's how you ensure your team's operations support ClickUp values and culture, or whether it's more, special ways that your team partners with the people team to ensure alignment. I'd love to dive into that topic.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think firstly, our recruitment team has been around for quite a bit. Most of them joined us in 2021, so I've seen a lot of the growth and scale along the way. And so I think naturally with that, they carry a sense of ownership and growing the culture. And I think like that comes into play with recruiting when you're really, it's coming from the heart when you're speaking about what the culture is like and what that means to a prospective candidate, which I think makes a big difference. In terms of the people team, we have an awesome people team now, which is great. We have a phenomenal fearless leader, Jim, who definitely leads with trust and like really empowering the recruitment team to kind of take the messaging and goals that he is setting for our internal employees and like bringing that out and sharing that out with candidates. I think that, in the day-to-day, like how that translates is with our people partner team, we definitely lean in pretty heavily to make sure that they know what's going on, or if we're running into roadblocks, they've been great partners in kind of brainstorming different ways we can tag teaming it, just because humans are different and they like it some ways and sometimes it's more impactful in others. So that's been great. And then the last piece I think is like just our people operations team. We've scaled a lot really quickly while hiring very fast. And so our HR systems are definitely up leveled now, and they've been great partners into us into making sure that candidate and employee experience has been growing 1% alongside with us.
Fantastic. That's really cool. So getting more into the details of actual recruiting, what is your team's process for assessing candidates' cultural fit?
Yes. So I think that ClickUp, just like any team, has a very high talent bar and wants to go after the best and the best. But I think where we really start is assessing culture fit through the lens of core values and how they really embody that. So I think no matter what department or what role you're hiring for, you can really dig into how they go about the best customer experience, whether that's with external shareholders, whether it's with the teams that they're supporting. And I think that that's a great way to assess that. I think when you look at grow 1%, normal sucks, have fun, be an owner in the details, those are all very natural things that come out in an interview process that you can tell just kind of how somebody's approaches to things through kind of asking pointed questions around those core values. And then additionally, I think we also look for a really strong desire to build. I think we've grown a lot the last couple of years, but there's still a ton of building left to be done. And I think that people that are really excited to just get their blueprints and be able to look back and be like, I did that part of ClickUp, I'm so proud, do really well in our culture and really find the most fulfillment out of it.
Really like the continuity there of all the practicality of those processes in a way that fits with the more philosophical side of the company. Maybe going more broadly, what are some of the most innovative things that you see happening in recruiting right now, whether that's at ClickUp itself or somewhere else?
Yeah, absolutely. I think more broadly in the market, I'm not sure if it's the most innovative, but it's been really awesome to just kind of see how creative teams have gotten with internal mobility and kind of how to pivot people into harder to fill roles and repurpose talent. So I think that that's been something that I've really enjoyed kind of watching from the sidelines on LinkedIn. And then I think within the bigger market, there's just so many tools out there that automate parts of the recruiting process. And it frees up a lot more time to kind of dive into really creative strategies around candidate experience and kind of amplifying the voices of companies to tell the story of culture, which I think is so powerful to hear from the employees themselves versus just a recruiter kind of telling that story. Within ClickUp, we definitely have our employees that are really amplified kind of within the market and are great ambassadors for our culture and kind of what career trajectories can look like here, which I think has been really cool to see as well.
Love that. What is one commonly held belief about recruiting that you disagree with?
Oh, I think it's got to be applications. I mean, I think that, when you think about finding a new job, it's just a natural instinct to think, okay, I'm going to go apply to everything that I find online. But I think like truly the most powerful thing in recruiting is your network. I think that I've seen the power of it here at Clickup. And I think that the people that know you well and like can really speak to who you are and your character are the best ways that you find new opportunities. That's how I ended up at Clickup. I think I had a friend at the time and she's like, hey, you got to take this call. Like, you're really going to like the team. You're going to like the values, like just hear it out. And then we can go from there. So I think like that's where I'd love to see recruiting shift more to, because I think there's just so much value in having a more human element versus just solely applications.
Absolutely. Well, this has been a super fun conversation. As we close out, if there were one thing that you could ask our audience to remember from all the goodness that you've shared with us, what would it be?
I think it would have to be that everything is figure outable. So just raise your hand, take the leap. Even if it feels crazy, I think that, it's very powerful to be positive and believe in yourself. And I think when you look back, it's just, it's the most rewarding feeling. And I hope that more people will kind of walk away feeling able to do that for themselves and their teams as well.
Love that. And I don't know if you've read the book, Jamie, and I'm also speaking to our audience. The book by Marie Forleo, Everything is Figure Outable, is a book, and it's a good one. So if you haven't read it, it's worth a read. Well, great. Jamie, thank you so much for lending your time to us today. It's been wonderful.
Awesome. Yeah, happy to be here.
And to our audience, thank you so much for being here as well. If you feel so inclined, please give us a 5-star rating on whatever platform you're on. And if you've ideas for topics or guests, send me a note at podcast@opencomp.com. Thanks, everyone. Win top talent while strengthening runway with OpenComp. Thousands of the world's fastest growing companies use our compensation intelligence platform because it offers the most competitive benchmarks and insights available. To learn more, visit app.opencomp.com/signup.